Welcome to the Birdhouse podcast, where we talk about how to build a business, how to become a better version of ourselves, while we strive to fly up to the higher skies. My name is Alexander Guller, the CEO of the Birdhouse Agency, and I'm your host for this podcast. Welcome to the Birdhouse. Welcome to the Birdhouse podcast. My name is Alexander Guller, and today with me I have Stephen Wynn. So, whenever we look at the world, there's a lot of physics laws, economics laws, and so on. So one of the things we want to start off by talking about is the principle called Pareto's principle, which states that 80% of the output is given by 20% of the input, meaning that in every scenario that 20% of the people that you have, maybe 20% of your customers make 80% of the complaints. 20% of the music artists make 80% of the music that's listened to, and so on and so on. So, Stephen, what is one of the ways that you have seen the Pareto principle in real life?
I have a couple. One was when I was doing IT help desk. It was keeping track of which problems were biggest and which and all of that, and keeping track of our top 20 problems or top 20 people who would submit tickets, and they would submit, I think the real number was like 77% of the tickets volume sent was either from that problem or from those people. Mm-hmm. And it was an insane number, because like you just don't think about it. You just think that they're frequent, but then when you actually get into it, you're like, dang, they're putting a lot of like time into this. Or whenever I worked at the pizza joint, 80% of our complaints about different pizzas or service came from 20% of the customers as well.
Yeah, and 20% is a lot of people. Like, that's every fifth person that you serve in the pizza joint, and so on. And I think it was an Italian economist back in like 100 years ago that really found this, and it was a natural law that happens all around the globe. And you can really see in that 20% of the society has 80% of the wealth, and so on. And 20% of those 20% have 80% of those 80%, and so on. And you can multiply that as that, as you can see with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and so on. Like, they have the majority of wealth, and so on. And if you actually look at the Bible, there's also the Pareto principle is such an old thing that there's also a thing called Matthäus, if I remember that name correctly, Matthäus, or Matthew. Matthäus or Matthew? Matthew?
Matthew's the English. I was like Matthäus. I was like, that's probably a different language for something. I was like.
Matthew, the Matthew principle that states he who has everything shall come, and he who has nothing, everything will be taken. It's not the exact words, but it's the same meaning. And what that means is, like, whenever you go and do something, it gets easier for you to do that, and it goes exponentially. And so, and that you can see in so many ways. If you learn to make money, it becomes easier to make money, and you get a lot more wealth. Whereas the person who has no money will forever keep on having no money whatsoever.
Yeah, it's definitely when we start talking about money in this, it's that mindset shift within the Pareto principle. Because I've served in many different economic levels. Everything from some like ultra rich to mid class to upper class to a lot of lower class, and the number one thing you'll see between each one of those is that like mindset of the lower class is just like, I need what I need, and if even if they're like presented with a little bit extra, they'll always take that because they don't know where the next meal is coming from, or they don't know where the next thing's coming from. But you'll also see them all roll up in like nice shoes and that kind of thing because it's their status quo of that. And if you ever notice for like car, in bigger cities, there's more car dealerships closer to the lower ecom areas, which you would think would be opposite because they don't have as much money to spend for it. But it's because like most of their sales actually come to the lower economic class because they just it's a lot of used, but it comes to the lower just because they're have that status of okay, I need a new car, I need this, I need this, I need a certain style because so and so is going to look at this, and then like middle class is like okay, I'm happy at this point, and they're still like in a lower ecom mindset where they're like, okay, I can only make a 40-hour a week job payment or a 60-hour. They can only work for money and not invest it. And then the higher you get up, you either get into a high skilled middle class mindset or a low income high mindset with that. And then once you get into the wealthy and ultra wealthy, it's a completely different game.
Oh yeah. Well, the ultra wealthy are definitely doing something else when everybody else is doing. So
Yeah, they're not afraid to fail, and that's the number one thing I see compared to I guess the bottom 80% or bottom 90 or bottom 95 or whatever you want to call it. It's they're not afraid to fail, and they have the resources that they can take more chances.
yeah, yeah. So definitely. But I also want to go back to the Pareto principle and the Matthew principle, um, which is kind of the same thing, but not as much. But the thing is, you also with compound interest. Whenever you get better at something, it gets easier to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you go to the gym, you start by taking one push-up. If you take that 5 days a week, you can maybe take two push-ups, and so on. You get better and better. So the person who starts gets better and better, and the person who keeps on going gets better and better, and so it's exponential. And the thing is, it's
Mm-hmm.
also exponential when it goes down. If you go down in a rat hole, it goes down, 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 and down, down, down. You start by taking, let's say, weed one party, and the next time you take weed and alcohol, and the next time you take weed and alcohol and coke and so on. I can list all
Mm-hmm.
the drugs, but you get what I'm saying. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
but on the other side, you can also like if you make the first $10, you can maybe make $100 and maybe $1,000 and $10,000 and so on. So it's really important to keep that mentality of knowing when you don't want to go, where you don't want to end up.
Yeah. Um, and with that, it just goes back to the where you spend 80% of your time might be 20% of your wealth, or 20% of your time might be 80% of your wealth.
Mm.
Um, and so on and so forth. And so it's just very interesting where people put their time towards. And it's not necessarily, it can be good, it can be bad. Um, but it's just like, okay, what's the most productive that I can be? What in my life can I look at and go, okay, I'm spending so much time here for so much trouble or
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and if you understand this principle, you can also really cut it out, um, cut it down to the bone, and really know what you need to focus
Hmm.
on yourself and what you need to delegate to other people. Because
Yeah.
when you look at it, let's say you have, I don't know, 20 tasks, and 80% of those it's producing 20% of the output. That means you should focus on the 20% that gives 80% of the output. That means you need to delegate the rest of them because they are still important tasks to get done, but they are just not moving the money needle as much, and
Yeah.
so on.
And then that's when you can also just take a look at your life with that and go, okay, like business owners again with delegating, or what are your people having the most trouble on, and all of that. Um, yeah,
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
or your mindset of like, okay, I'm worrying about something coming up 80% of the time, or something like that. Because a lot of people, when they're awake, they're always worrying or anxious about something nowadays. And so with that, you can go, okay, what is that I'm thinking about, and monitor your thoughts as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually think that's a great point. That 20% of the situation produce 80% of the things that you worry about.
Hmm.
Like,
And so, and a lot of that is, again, it's that mindset shift of like just trusting that that thing is going to happen. Because if we break it down of why you're anxious, most of the time it's because you think something is going to go wrong,
mm,
and it's going to be outside of your control.
mm,
And I know I've brought this point up before, but write down the list of like, okay, I'm worried about my exam coming up. So, what are the things that you can control? Well, you can control how much you've studied the material. You control how much time you've put into it. You can control the environment in which you study, the breakfast you had that day. You can control those things. You can't control what questions are on the test.
yeah,
And so it's like, okay, how do you use your time effectively in everything that you can go? So don't worry about the questions on the test. Worry that you know the principles of the test.
mm,
And so, and it becomes something from worry to concern, because and those are two very different things. You should be concerned, you should not be worried.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, yeah.
yeah. And I also think it's just as you explain like that. It also cuts down the things that you have to think about by a substantial amount. Like the maybe you have to think about 20 things about the upcoming exam, but whenever you list them up and say, okay, these are actually the things that I can control. I can control on how much I study. I can control how well, how much sleep I get, how much I get prepared, and how ready I am with my computer and so on. But you can control the questions in the exam, so that's one thing you don't have to worry. You don't have to think about. So that's one less thing to think about.
Yeah.
And the thing is also the brain is finite. The brain's human thinking and so on is a finite resource.
Hmm.
You can't think endlessly. That's and I'm going to say a number of thoughts that you can have per day. I can go into it more technically and more scientifically, but you have a certain set amount of thoughts that you can do, and whatever you provide those amount to, you got to be quite careful about that.
Yeah. And I've definitely noticed ever since I've got my concussions, because I've had a ton of them.
Oh yeah.
Um, like I've definitely noticed where I have to shift where my energy goes, because I had my energy bank started decreasing, and so now I only have a set amount of energy per day. It's where do I allocate that? I need to allocate 10% of my energy to this podcast. I need to put 10% to, I don't know, DoorDash. I need to put actually energy to get ready for bed and get ready for the day, just because it takes me longer. And so I might only have 50% of my energy left. And I'm like, okay, the rest of the day, where do I put that 50%?
Mm.
And where do I have to take the breaks to regain any amount of that energy?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing I like about that is also like you have to know what the limits and
Hmm.
your own restrictions, because of your concussions you say you don't have as much energy as you maybe used to. I don't know, but
Yeah.
so you have to be aware of that and allocate it correctly. And
Yeah. And it's like with all my energies, injuries, um, I wish they were energies. Um, but like I know that I can't go dunk a basketball now. Like
Okay.
that's just it's physically outside of my capability, right? Like in the state I am right now. I know I can't run a 5 minute mile anymore.
Yeah.
I know that. It's just a fact that happens for that. And so
And and and,
yeah,
and I also like that you said in this state because like there's a lot of things that can change, but on now versus now and versus the future. But like I get what you mean. And in this state, for me myself, I can't run a marathon, but I can.
you can, it just
I,
would absolutely suck.
oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Um, maybe I don't know. I haven't
I, I,
tried
would-
it.
I would a friend told me, he's like, you might not be able to run a mile comfortably, but I know you would be able to run a marathon if I challenged you, because you just have that mindset that you're not going to quit.
Mm, yeah, probably. I don't know. I haven't tried. Maybe I should try at some point.
That would be very interesting, just recording a video and saying, I'm running a marathon without training. Going into it
Content.
just pure, just nothing. And you're just like, have you heard of the guy that he was running a marathon, or not a marathon, 100K, an ultra marathon, or 100 miles? And at like mile 75, he had a friend that came to him, and I guess this is a
Oh,
mind shift thing. And the friend just was like, "Hey, I want you to say this to myself and everyone you meet, that you know what, I don't get tired. I'm like, even though that you're at the bottom of your energy pool, you can't go on. Just go. Yeah, I'm not tired.
yeah,
You know, me and him,
yeah,
me and Techno
yeah.
right here.
We don't get
We
tired.
don't get tired."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
they finished it and had extra energy. And guess what? That's 20. Funny enough, that was 20% of their journey left, that they started doing that, and they probably had 80% of the fun through that.
yeah.
There,
I like that.
he
I like that. Yeah,
which I just think that's also hilarious on the concept that we're
yeah,
talking about. But like, seriously, that is a huge thing. That's like, okay, if you say, "Oh, I don't get tired," of course there are some actual physical like limits if you've had injuries and
yeah.
different things like that. But there you can do more than you think you can.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also like the point of that clip and that speaker with that example is also what you speak becomes the truth. So like if you say you don't give up, you're not going to give up. If you say you don't get tired, you don't get tired. If you say it
And
enough time, it's like,
And I think that's with like my friend when he said like, "Oh, you can run a marathon," like
mm,
because he knows that like as soon as I get into the thing that I'm gonna finish something, I'm gonna finish that thing. Gosh darn it! We
like
were playing a game. I think it's called We're Doomed. It's a really fun game, by the way, if you should get it. But the concept of the game is you have to try to get different influence and different manufacturing to get X amount of people off on a ship, and you get different cards throughout the game, and that's different tasks. So like somebody might be able to reach into the manufacturer buckets and take that for themselves because they're trying to be the only one who survives, and that's their winning condition.
oh
And somebody else might be, okay, I need to kill 2 people or whatever. um, but there's like a card that said, okay, whoever stops clapping last, um, like gets X amount of influence or X amount of manufacturing. And it was me and the friend who actually, he's run a couple marathons, which I'm so happy for him that he's done that. But we were in a clapping thing, and he was like, I just know I'm not going to win this because even though you're in extreme amount of pain, you just don't care.
you have to win. You
Yeah.
have to win. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to win because that's just my competitive nature, where we were sitting there just clapping. I don't know, it was probably 10 minutes, and then he was like, if you promise not to kill me, I'll stop clapping as well. And I was like, fair enough, because both of our
Really?
arms were just burning at this
How
point.
long? Like how long did you do it?
I think it was about 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes straight.
Really?
Like
Oh, shit.
I didn't do it very hard, because but like just I challenge you, like this evening, just clap for 10 minutes straight while you're doing stuff as well. So you have to be like moving something on the table. I was like using my elbow to grab tokens and sweeping it. Like I literally would switch my hand like this and sweep it off into my hand and then put it in the bucket and all of that.
Wow, sounds fun actually.
Yeah. But granted, I also learned how to do the fastest clapping technique.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
You're just rubbing your hands at that point. But yeah, so but again, it was like in that moment, it was just like, okay, you can persevere through whatever's put in front of you, and you have to believe that, and you have to use that 80% of your mind power to believe in that 20% output that you're putting, and you just constantly think about it, and then you're constantly putting that output, and then eventually that output becomes to your 80% instead of your 20.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And it's also about believing in yourself and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And perseverance is like you can find everybody talks about perseverance and discipline and so on. Um, so like you need it.
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true though.
it's true. It's true.
Yeah, another, I guess, a good. We'll go into. I don't, how long is the recording? Sorry, I just want to know how much time you have left before you need to go to your next thing. Before I bring up another topic or whatever.
15 minutes, just about.
Cool. So another really good book that is out there is called Atomic Habits.
Actually, just ordered it.
And I think that's the concepts that you're pulling from that, which is the one push-up a day, the whatever one a day, and eventually you're going to have time, you're going to have energy for 2, 3, 4, 5, and again, it's that snowball effect, that the exponential growth, because once you start getting 2, you'll be able to do 4, 8, 16, and then eventually that's going to turn into an S curve at where your upper limit is. But it is just a very interesting thing, because if you spend even 10 minutes a day doing something, say you do it 5 days a week, that is a 40 hours by the end of the year. And that is the full work week that you did something for 10 minutes. So if you go use the restroom on a work shift 10 minutes every day, you're getting paid 40 hours to use the restroom a year. Or if you're reading a book for 10 minutes, guess what? You did 40 hours of reading that year.
Hmm?
And a lot of people don't realize that just 10 minutes, 5 days a week is that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so too, yeah. And the thing is, if you don't, as you said, like 10 minutes a day for a whole year goes up to a full work week. And I just think, I don't think people understand it, and I don't think people are thinking about it and using that effectively.
Yep.
Like,
People's
I know
concepts of time
always,
is not amazing.
yeah, and I really like the a principle, a saying on TikTok, I think, where a person said you have $76,800 each day, and you know that the next day you're going to get the same amount, no matter how much you spent the last day, right?
Yep.
And each day you get that amount, and the reason why he said that certain amount was because that's the amount of seconds we have each day.
Yep.
And so on.
And it's like,
but we don't spend. If we got that much time each day, that amount of money each day, we would spend every dollar of it we could.
yeah. And then it's just like, okay, and then I guess for each day you have to pay a sixth of that to sleeping and all that, and so you're down to 70,000 seconds, and then you have to eat for 3 hours or whatever, and then so within that it's just like, okay, what is the amount of dollars or time that you have per day to improve yourself?
Oh yeah.
Or go and, like, it's okay to go relax every once in a while, but it's just like, at our age, we're young. the more that we relax now, the greater effect it has later.
Yeah.
Because there's just because of that, it's just like the investing. Put $10 into investing or retirement now, and you'll make more than $50 you put starting at 35 or whatever. And so it's just like if we start building habits now, it will be much greater gain than like if my 60-year-old parents started doing something. Like them relaxing is they don't have as much time as I do, and so they're not going to lose out as much money or whatever because of that.
Yeah. And it's quite fun when we talk about that, because I think it's kind of paradoxical, because as you age you get more efficient with the time you have, but as young you have the most time. So
Yeah. And again, it's when people hit about 40 or 50, they start realizing that time thing.
Yeah.
Because when they're young, it seems like whenever you're 60, that's 3 times the amount that we've lived.
Yeah.
And so with that, people just are like, oh, okay, I got time. Like, because their concept is, okay, I've already lived for so long that when I get that age, I'll have more time. But they don't realize that they're not going to be making as many core memories or as many different things like that. And so they'll actually have less energy, less just physical health and all of that.
Yeah. And I think that's also one thing you have to note. Like, as a young person, you should have more energy and physically and mentally than older.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just I think. Of course, I
It's
can
just,
say that from experience, but
but it depends on when you train that energy as well. So a lot of
yeah.
people have more energy when they're older because they actually take care of themselves. But yeah, okay. So let's do a little game.
The code game.
Okay, is it a YouTuber, influencer? Is it a movie, or is it a motivational speaker?
Is there any speakers this time?
What?
Is there any speakers this time?
There are motivational speakers. There's actually at least one of each.
Okay, sounds fun. Okay, let me
Okay.
know.
Your greatness is limited only by the investments you make in yourself.
That sounds like something Warren Buffett would say. So, a motivational speaker is.
Correct.
Oh wow.
Grant Cardone
Oh, okay,
was the one who
fair
said
enough.
that.
But
Okay. Great men are not born great; they're grown great.
that's a movie.
Do you know which movie? Because it sounds like you've heard that before.
I have heard it before, but I don't know which movie. It's it's. I think it's a war movie, right? Yeah.
The Godfather.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Okay. Okay, what is success? Success is the inner satisfaction and peace of mind, knowing you've done the best that you can on what you've been given, making progress towards a predetermined goal for the better of a group.
That just sounds out of a book.
Yeah, let me repeat that again because I completely scuffed reading that.
Okay, sure.
Inner success is the satisfaction and peace of mind knowing you've done the best with what you have been given, making progress towards a predetermined goal for the betterment of the group.
Okay, what was the third category?
So motivational speaker, movie, and influencer, so TikToker or YouTuber.
I feel like that's an influencer, TikTok. Because normally when motivational speakers have quotes, it's not that long.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of motivational speaker quotes that are quite long.
Fair enough, but like that
I only
was long and technical.
Yeah, that one is an influencer. It was on a podcast, and so that one was the Raging Workaholic podcast. The guy makes hilarious videos, by the way. That said this. I can't remember what his exact name is, but you guys should go look him up and all that. But okay, a wise man can learn from his enemies than a fool. A wise man can learn more from his enemies than a fool from his friends.
That's from a movie.
Sounds like you've seen this as well.
I think I have. I don't know where.
I hadn't seen this movie.
Hadn't.
Rush.
Rush?
Yeah, I think it's a racing movie if I remember right. But yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Taking massive action means making somewhat unreasonable choices and then following it up with more action. This level of action can be considered by some to be borderline insane, well beyond the agreed social norm, and will always create new problems. But remember, if you do not create new problems, you're not taking enough action.
Influencer.
Motivational speaker.
Oh, word. Who?
Grant Cardone again.
Damn.
I threw in a long one to throw you off as well.
Yeah, okay, I got that. I got that.
I gave you a foreshadowing earlier.
Well, but for correct, 1-1. I'm just saying.
Yeah, much better than you did last week.
Way better. Okay.
Fine. I'll get more similar quotes next week from not so famous movies.
Sounds good. And just do you know who Dan Pena is?
Can't think off the top of my mind now.
Right. Well, he's the Scottish man who owns a castle, and he's known for shouting and so on. But
that's fabulous.
Fabulous. And one of the quotes he has, he talks about is, success is just like pregnancy, being pregnant. Everybody congratulates you, but nobody knows how many times you've been fucked.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun.
But it's so true, though.
Yeah.
It's like you at the end when you have that success of the baby, it's like they don't know how hard. It's just like for wealthy people that make it wealthy and aren't just the inheritors of it. It's like they don't know how much time they got screwed over, how many times that they got scammed or anything like that, because they had a hard path to get there.
Yeah, really. But
like Grant Cardone used to make less than I make per year, and then he again had he had a couple of things that he did that he made opportunities for himself, and then he started making hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, so it's possible. You can change a lot in this world.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good note to finish on. So everybody, thanks for watching, and see you next week. Bye.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Birdhouse Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow me on my Instagram @TheBirdhouseAgency and share it to your friends and family, or rate it on Apple Podcast or Anchor. My name is Alexander Gulager, and I will see you at the next episode.